Welcome to PCS with Military.com. I'm your host, Amy Bouchatz, Military.com's executive editor. On this podcast, we talk about everything you need to know to make this military move season your best yet. PCS with Military.com is brought to you by Navy Federal Credit Union, proudly serving all branches of the armed forces, veterans, and their families. No matter where you are in your military career, Navy Federal Credit Union has the products and resources to help you navigate your finances. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. Our members are the mission. Now, let's get this PCS started. Creating a great military move has a lot of important pieces and a lot of moving parts. There's the official stuff, like working with the military on your orders. There's the contracted and physical stuff, like working with the assigned movers or dealing with packing and moving yourself and then being reimbursed. And then there's the practical stuff, like figuring out your housing and making sure your belongings themselves aren't driving you crazy. While every military move is slightly different, you can always be sure of one thing. The more organized you are when it comes to your actual belongings, the easier they will be to pack and unpack. And that's why we have home organization and storage expert Christa Curtis with us today. A Navy spouse coming to us from her Oconus duty station, Christa's business, Permanent Change of Storage, helps military families and others tackle home organizational challenges, including before and after a PCS. And today, she's going to give us her best tips and tricks for creating a move that isn't going to drive you absolutely bananas, at least as far as keeping your stuff organized is concerned. Christa, welcome to PCS with Military.com.
Thank you so much for having me, Amy.
So before we get rolling, you have to tell us, how many times have you moved with and without the military?
Okay, so I moved once when I was a baby and once in high school, both kind of in the same Tri-City area. And then after, or actually slightly before I graduated high school, I moved out. And throughout college, I moved a total of 10 times. But again, all within the state of California, and most of them all within the San Diego area where I was going to school. And then just in the military, then from the time after we first moved into our apartment in San Diego, all the way to now where we're getting ready to move to South Korea from Stuttgart, Germany, we are on our 8th move. So I think that's
Wow.
20.
That's a lot of moves. You know what? I figure at some point, just stop counting and say
I
a
know,
lot.
right?
So, Krista, give us a little bit of background on how it was you came to be a home organization ninja.
Well, it started off with after our second move. We first moved from San Diego to Virginia Beach, but we were only there for 6 months and we had very little belongings. But we had a little bit more with a 1-year-old moving to Japan. That was the second move. And I had picked up this book called The Organized Mom. I was a new mom. I like being organized. I had always kind of been an organized person. So I was like, all right, let me kind of combine these two new roles I have of having to move around a little bit and being a mom and see how much I can simplify this because I have a lot going on. And if this lifestyle is going to be any kind of a little bit less stressful for me, I think starting with organization would be the best. And that book by Stacy Crew, she's a delightful person, by the way. I have to say that in case she ever hears this. Her method that she has in her book was just so 100% foolproof and made so much sense to me that I just had to take it and run with it. And like I did my whole house with her method. And I have since, like over the years, like really tweaked it a little bit to work with the military lifestyle. And that's how I came up with my system that I teach my clients. And I, again, like it's just kind of trial and error through all the different moves and what has worked and what hasn't worked and figuring it out. And yes, but I think for probably the past 2 years, I've had my company, and then 10 years before that, I've been just kind of helping out friends here and there, and I've definitely helped out my mom and some other relatives just kind of get stuff in order a little bit better around their homes, and that's always just brought me so much joy, like to go into somebody else's mess and like fix
Yeah.
it.
So what I hear you saying is like you had a interest in home organization, experimented on yourself and the few friends and sort of uncovered a talent for it that you now are using to help everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. As many people as I can, for sure.
Awesome. Okay, so what are your favorite home organizational tools for military families? Maybe specific to a PCS, if like that's a thing.
I definitely love plastic storage bins, the big ones, not just the little ones. Little ones are good, but I love the big ones where I can just toss a bunch of stuff in from any given room. And then, we like to color code when we're moving. So if I put a pink sticker on all of my daughter's bins, then I know those are all going to go in hers. Um, and speaking of like labels and color coding, I really love our friend CC Gallagher has the stressless PCS kit, which is superb for inventory and for really just helping like simplify what containers and boxes go where when your movers are taking
Mm,
them in and out of each space. It helps them label, it helps you understand what needs to go in each room, and hopefully really simplifies the process for you. I know sometimes boxes get moved to the wrong room and the movers just drop them anywhere sometimes, but it really helps for you to be able to see that color and go, oh no, this actually goes in the baby's room versus the master bathroom. Like, so
yeah.
that really helps simplify that. And then I am a planner person. I really, really, really love planners. And so, like, whenever I'm moving, I always have my PCS binder or big envelope with every single scrap of paper that we probably need in the next few weeks over the course of a move in that folder, like all in one place. And in there, I also
Mm.
keep a calendar that just kind of helps me really help know when I'm going to be pre-packing each room, figuring out when we're going to be moving into the next place, and then kind of even plan out a little bit how I'm going to unpack, just prioritize a little bit. Because, like, it's nice to think that you're going to get unpacked in like 3 or 4 days and get it all settled and everything. But if you don't have like a plan going into that about what you're prioritizing, I hear all the time the hardest thing about getting organized is knowing where to start. And if you don't even have like a
Yeah.
bit of a plan to go with the idea of what you're prioritizing, that's going to be your biggest roadblock to even getting started is knowing what your priority is.
I love that you mentioned the binder. We have a separate episode with Megan Harless, who has a really effective binder system that she recommends and talks to us all about
Yay.
binders. So, guys, don't forget to check out these other PCS with Military.com episodes for information with people like, or rather from people like Megan. Because so there are really two parts to home organization PCS, right? There's like before the move, and then there's after the move. So I know plenty of people who let the movers pack everything and then they use unpacking as a chance to purge because they're just seeing everything then instead of, doing it the other way around. What do you recommend and why?
So I would argue that there's actually a third option.
Ooh, secret option 3.
Secret option three. People ask me all the time, like, Krista, do you just love when you're getting ready to move and you get to purge like everything? Does that just give you so much happiness, like to just get rid of everything? I was like, I actually do a purge about every 3 to 4 months.
Whoa.
Yeah, and it's this little trick that I have, and I teach it to my clients. It's called seasonal switches. So I kind of line it up with, summer, spring, winter, fall, but also a little bit with holidays and going back to school and summer starting. You have that thing on the calendar that allows you to kind of base it on the seasons. But if you think about it, like we were planning on moving this time in May, so everything
Mhm.
that we had used last summer, swim gear, anything that we would play outside with a lot more in the sunshine and stuff like that, because here in Germany, we're not having a whole lot of sunshine. Um, anything that we like, the kids' toys that they play with outdoors and that kind of thing, I could easily get rid of a lot of that back in August 2020 when they were going back to
Mhm.
school and they weren't going to be using it. Bikes they had outgrown, any kind of summer clothes and stuff like that. I wanted to get rid of it then rather than holding on to it until what, 4 weeks before the movers were coming and realizing, oh, we're not going to use any of this because they've outgrown it. And then I have to get rid of it then. So I again, like I kind of do that, and like when we're talking about the holidays, like I packed up extra well for the holidays, and I did an inventory then of what we have, so that way I didn't have to think about going back into those boxes when the movers come. and doing it then. If I had purged everything and
Yeah.
know what I have in there and know what I'm taking with me already, then I don't have to really go back into those boxes later. So it's kind of a ongoing process.
Yeah, yeah, that's okay. So I'm thinking of my episode with Megan where she talks about having an
Right,
inventory of her whole house. And I thought, that's super
right,
overwhelming sounding. But if you're purging everything seasonally like that, or going through your things seasonally and making sure,
right.
you know what you have and all that stuff, the inventory is not quite as a daunting task. Man, that's such a good man, what a good pro tip. Okay, so let's get down nuts and bolts here. What are the biggest organizational mistakes you see military families make?
Oh, okay. Well, there's a couple that really blanket anybody who's trying to get organized. First of all, everybody thinks it's about the containers. They think it's about, like, I know I mentioned I love bins, but everybody thinks, like, oh, just to get my house organized, I need to go get out some cute bins and get some really great organizational systems that I can buy off a shelf and just plug and play, right? But it doesn't really work like that if you don't have everything unpacked, don't have everything unsorted, don't have everything kind of trimmed down to what you actually want to keep. Yes, maybe it sparks joy, or yes, you have such great sentimental attachment to it, or anything like that. But once you know what you have, once you've grouped everything and put it in the right place, then you go get the containers, because it does not make sense to go get like 18 bins when you're only going to keep like maybe 6 bins of stuff, and then you've spent all that money, or vice versa. Maybe you special order 6 bins, but you actually do need 12 bins or something like that for everything that you want to keep. Um, so that's something that everybody kind of does. Probably specifically for military, that there's two big issues that we really run into. Is one, thinking you need to keep everything in case you need it. But I have found over my many, many, many moves that there is nary a place that Amazon Prime can't reach, and or that somebody else isn't already getting rid of something that I probably need, because Facebook Marketplace has become such a beautiful thing where people put stuff out for free or really cheap, and you can find what you need when you need it. If you hold on to stuff like old baby clothes, or even just kitchen gadgets and stuff like that that you're thinking of that you might use one day, chances are, if you don't have the space for it right now, you can get rid of it, and when you need it, you'll be able to get another one easy peasy. And the second one is the goldfish bowl theory. And I don't know if I'm like totally ripping somebody off with this idea, but it's the idea that as you move around, you're going to be in different size spaces, likely. And if you happen to go from a small space to a pretty big space, like we moved from a roughly 1,200 square foot townhouse in Japan to a 3,000 square foot villa in Bahrain a few years ago, and we made the biggest mistake of basically growing to fit the space, like, and not just our family, but our stuff. So if you kind of start to fill the space that you're in, but that's not very helpful if in 2 years you're going to be moving to another space that's maybe 1,000 square foot less than that. And that really just kind of doesn't help you with just this idea of um, just having your items under control a little bit. I'm not saying you can't, put up your pictures and make the place homey and feel like it's lived in, and not, sit in an empty box or anything. If you happen to be in a really big place, but just keep that in mind, that you don't overfill the big places when it's a possibility you're going to go to a smaller place next.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I wanna go back to the boxes thing here in a second, but, you're talking about filling the spaces, and I'm thinking, of course, of something else you referenced earlier, which is our pal Marie Kondo and her spark and joy. So there's a lot of pros and cons to that, right?
Right.
But somewhere in there is a balance where we are not keeping things for the sake of of just having things, or for the sake of filling that space. We're keeping stuff because it has a meaning to us, or has a purpose, or just makes us happy. Like, it doesn't the thing I really appreciated about that book and the corresponding show was the, like, lack of shaming that went along with
Absolutely.
it. Is all of your stuff that somebody else might look at and say, "Whoa, what a bunch of junk,"
Right.
is actually making you happy, why not have it?
Exactly.
Um But when you are doing what you're saying, which is just growing to fit the space that you're in, you are maybe not sticking true to that sort of core principle, which is that your stuff should serve a purpose. That purpose can be, beyond the dimensions of practical or whatever. Like the purpose could simply be that it makes you happy. But if you're not looking at your home in that light, you might be setting yourself up to have a lot of frustration during your next
Yeah,
move.
absolutely. I agree with you. And I think, because people have a lot of things that maybe they do have joy and maybe they do have a purpose, but maybe they don't really fit right now. And even if you're in a
Mm,
big space and you can use the excuse, well, I have the space, might not in a couple of years. And like I said again, it's just that's something really particular to a military family. It's like, but if it's not super sentimental, if it's something that you can replace, like it's not like your grandmother's hand knit blanket or something like that, that those kinds of things are obviously very much a treasure, and that's something else. But like, you're oh gosh, I can't even think of a good example of something that I wouldn't get rid of.
that's so funny. Well, I'm wondering on that vein of like you're obviously on the well practiced end of this, and
Exactly.
you've
Yes.
really.
I'm the wrong person to ask of what to keep, what not to keep.
Okay, but I'm wondering, like, when you're working with your clients who are not so good at
Yeah.
this yet, are you anti or pro storage facility? Like, are you
Ooh.
okay with people having, endless things that don't fit in their current fishbowl, but do have sentimental value, in a storage facility?
Well, again, I'm speaking specifically tailored to the military community. I would try very hard not to pay for anything that the military is not paying for. So like when we go overseas, they give us a non-temporary storage, which is that long-term storage that you can put in some of your excess stuff to make sure you stay. And
Mhm.
you do still have to stay within your weight allowance. So it is, stuff that you want to keep that you should put in there, not just everything. Um, and like we're going through that right now, trying to decide what we're gonna put in storage. And it's like this has to be stuff that I will use later. Like it can't it
Mm,
can't be a
mhm.
maybe. It can't be a I will definitely not be able to get this again kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
so that's just
Well, and so often you hear from people who
yeah,
store stuff when they come back stateside that they forgot they had this
yes,
and most certainly, like, don't need it, and they're shocked that they kept it, and they're sort of laughing at themselves for thinking they would miss this thing that they've now forgotten about and is going straight into some sort of garage sale pile,
absolutely. Yes,
like, today.
those 15, 20 boxes that we've either shuffled around or put into storage, and then you retire, and all of a sudden, like 8 shipments show up at your house, and it's like, what is all this stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. I like to do, like, the confessions of Amy Bouchot's on the on these podcast episodes. Okay, so here's something funny. I have we don't move very much anymore. My husband's now in the
Yes.
National Guard. We have a box or 2 of things under our stairs that I have not purged, okay, and the reason I have not purged them is my husband considers them important, and they're, like, framed whatever, okay, that we will never, ever, ever, ever hang because I'm not
Right.
hanging that. But he is really convinced that we should keep this forever. Oh, he's also convinced we should hang this stuff. We do
Right.
have arguments about that. And I'm like, "No, if we're gonna keep this back into the thing, it goes." Anyway, so I'm newly inspired now to have a real conversation about this stuff because if it mattered to me, it would be hung, but it doesn't,
Yeah, you're right.
you know?
100%. Yeah.
I I'm I just want people to know that I'm not crazy and it really is awful. We all have disagreements like that
We
with our
all
spouses.
we all really
Sure.
do. Yes.
Okay, one more confession, and dovetailing into the subject of containers. My biggest problem is that I think that like, I do what you said. I put out all of my stuff and I'm like, "Ooh, this is the container system we need." And I go and buy the container system that is on sale. Awesome. Then I come home and I do my business with the containers. Okay. Fast forward, 6 months, we have a new collection of whatever that with my kids or whatever. And I go and I think, "Aha, I must have containers for this." And I go and I buy whatever container is on sale. And inevitably, it does not match in any way the containers that I previously bought. And now we have the container hodgepodge closet where nothing stacks well and and it makes sense. Okay. Like it's all various and sundry sizes that don't really, that topple over because of this problem. Okay. So my question is surely one, I'm not the only person who does that. And two, how do you, while keeping in mind only getting what you need right now, like you said earlier, create a system that is not gonna result in my present chaos.
Oh, good question. Okay, so obviously you can stick with shopping at some of the same stores. Like I love IKEA because I know I will be able to get it anywhere in the world that I go. And then obviously we have our base exchanges or our post exchanges and stuff like that that usually carry the same brands, but let's face it, they all change their styles and their exact shapes every couple
Right,
of years. So it's really
right.
if unless you were to literally get your stuff down to the bare minimum and then go buy bins for everything all at once, which is a significant investment, I don't necessarily recommend that unless your budget allows for it and you have the time. um, but it's one of those things that's like you can kind of work with just the different sizes. You just kind of gotta, like you said, piece it together and then my favorite thing though is just sticking with the plastic bins with storage because like
Mm,
you can use the cardboard, you can use the leftover stuff, but it's not gonna hold up forever. And it that's there's more chance of water damage or even just damages in the moves and stuff like that. And the movers will pack these. Like they will either put your stuff into the plastic bins for you when you're moving, or if you have
mhm.
already pre-packed it, they just have to check what's inside, make sure nothing that's contraband or whatever they're not supposed to pack or anything is in there, your candles, your batteries, whatever. And they'll wrap them up and stick them on the truck for you. I know that's like if people have had different experiences with that, but in my experience, they always take my bins. So
Mm,
it's not been a problem for me. Um, and I guess ultimately, if you're sticking with just a good sized bin for these different things, you like you're first of all, you're right, you're not alone. You're in good company. I have bins from all over the world and from all different kinds of brands and stuff like that. And just as long as they're not broken, they're still good and you can kind of just piece together yeah, that's what we have to do, right? When we're moving around and like trying to um figure out like new doctors, new grocery stores, new whatever you have to kind of piece together because you're not always going to get the same thing in each place.
yeah. So what I hear you saying though is insert some
Yeah.
intentionality here. That's probably my favorite word in the whole world, I've realized.
My
But
word of the year this
um
year, intention.
Oh, there you go. But the thing is that as you're talking, I'm realizing I'm not just going to the store and getting the not same container because they changed styles. I'm going to the store and getting whatever's on
Yeah,
sale. Like I'm not even paying attention to start with. So what I need to do is pick a system and stick with it, or I'm going to have the hodgepodge
right.
problem, which results in me being very frustrated
I guess
later.
I guess if anything, my favorite features in a bin are the straighter the sides, the better. And then a lid that does have those little latch things that come up on top and actually click it down so that way you're not dealing with the lid popping up and down.
I love that you've even considered this because I'm sitting here like, straight sides. Never thought about that. That's different. Just a quick pit stop here to thank our sponsor. PCS with Military.com is brought to you by Navy Federal Credit Union. They might be called Navy Federal, but they don't exclusively serve sailors. Serving all members of the armed forces, they have the products and resources to help you navigate your finances through every phase of life. So, even if you can't tell port from starboard, they'll still help you learn about mortgages and auto loans. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. Navy Federal Credit Union, our members are the mission, an equal housing lender. And now, back to the show. Okay, so you've created a business helping people get and stay
Yes.
organized. You know, I'm a big fan of outsourcing when I'm in over my head. Woohoo. Okay, so tell us, how do you know when it's time to call in a professional for some help? Because Marie Kondo is not
She's
available.
not, unfortunately. and neither is Cass Arson, and Lisa Woodruff doesn't do personal organizing anymore. So, um,
Rude, rude. Okay, so how do you know when how does someone like me know when it's time to call someone like you?
so I haven't nailed this down. Like when I was thinking about this question, I don't know it from the outside perspective of when they know, but what I can tell you is each of my clients has been at a point of overwhelm, usually when there's just kind of stuff everywhere. The movers kind of just dumped stuff out, or they're getting ready to move and like they've been in the same place for a couple years and they just don't want to take it all with them. Obviously, those are key times before and after the move. Like we had mentioned before, that's usually when people like notice that there's a problem and they either have to get rid of the stuff before or after. Um, and so that's usually when people call me. But I also love working with people in any kind of transition. Like if you suddenly need a home office space, hello, COVID, or you're having a new
Mm,
baby, or maybe your kids are leaving and you want to kind of like help them take all their stuff with them, or um, maybe you're heading into retirement and you are going to be expecting those 6 or 7 shipments to your home. Like those are the times that I think can really benefit from somebody like me coming in and helping you prioritize, helping you really get to the meat of maybe what has stopped you before with either getting organized or
mm,
staying organized. Um, because we all have different overwhelming times in our lives, and I don't clean my house like because I realized a few years ago that I can't do that. So but I know I have children that need to stay healthy, and pets that need cleaning up after with all their fur. So I made the decision, like you said, to outsource that. And they know what they're doing. They can come in and take care of it, and my house smells amazing every 2 weeks. And so
yeah.
for me to be able to be that for somebody, I think well, first of all, it's just a huge blessing for me. But I think when people realize that they have just a lot to deal with and it's not in their wheelhouse, just naturally, and then they find out I'm local
Mhm.
or I can help them virtually, or they can, pick up a printable or pick up a webinar or a workshop from me, then that's something that's I think just I'm so glad that I can help them.
Yeah. Well, when we were talking earlier, you were saying we talked about intentionality and we talked about taking the time to go
Right.
through your stuff incrementally to know what's there. And I'm just like envisioning myself sticking this on the calendar and not being as constantly overwhelmed when things change so that I know like let's use my kids' room as a particular example because that's just like disaster zone number one, right? And somehow children have this ability to multiply their belongings. It's like, who's buying them this stuff? And it's like recreating itself overnight. Every night, there's new Nerf guns in there. I don't even know how this is happening.
It's an exponential multiplicity. Yes.
Rabbits. Okay, so, uh, I go in there and I'm like, "Oh my god," and then I leave. Okay, and every now and then my head explodes and I go in there with a trash bag while they're not home, right? And that's a very high stress activity, like, no one likes that, you know?
No.
So, then the flip side of that is this morning I look at my son who is 8 and he is wearing, I kid you not, jammy pants that are almost to his knees. I don't even know when this happened. Because the last time I looked at him in these jammy pants, they were not to his knees. Um, but clearly, we need to go through his clothes and take out the things that are too short. All of these are organizational issues that if I put on my calendar to every 3 months, hit up the battlefield and take care of business, I would not be sitting here being like, I have to do this. I don't want to do this. This is going to be a nightmare. Everyone's going to fight about it. We're going to have, I'm going to have to sneak in there in the nighttime and take his favorite sweatshirt. It would just be something that the whole family expected. So like I hear you talking about that. And I hear again this overarching theme of being intentional about what you have and why you have it
Right.
will save you organizational headaches when you move and unpack.
Absolutely. And through any transition, really. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, so, uh, We did not talk ab we listeners talked about, Krista and I talked about some of these questions ahead of time. I did not ask you about this, but I really feel like you're prepared. You
Okay.
can talk to us. When you, because 'cause you've moved so many times. So when you
Hmm.
unpack, what is your system? Like, what do you recommend to people to stay
Oh,
organized from the moment all that stuff comes in their house? What do? You talked about bins, color
yes.
coded.
Well,
What
I mean,
else?
obviously that starts before the move itself as I pre-pack. Like we talked about the seasonal switches and through that last year before we're expecting to move, I've like already kind of done an inventory. So a lot of it is prep work. Prep up to a year ahead of time.
Mm,
Um, I mean, I know not everybody knows when and where they're going at any given points. um, so if you only have a few months, you can still start by getting rid of stuff and making sure everything's in the right space, making sure you have all the pieces to those board games and stuff like that. Um, and then I always have the movers unpack. I know that that's like a really 50-50 split decision on military families. They just don't trust people to like go through their stuff or they don't want a big mess. But if you pre-pack by either bagging up like all the stuffed animals and bagging up all the clothes and putting all of the little toy pieces in little plastic baggies, wrapping all of your kitchen utensils into a Ziploc bag, like you can still put it back in the drawer and the movers will come and take the bag and put it in the box for you. But then when they come and dump that box out, you're not looking at piles of stuff, you're looking at bags of stuff. And so they can still take all the boxes
mm,
and the paper with them, and you don't have to deal with cutting all that stuff open and shifting all this heavy stuff around. You just have this one bag that you have to go through and get it done. The last time that we moved, when we moved here, I had everything pre-packed before the movers came. And except for my office was the last place I was going to get to, and I just ran out of time. And I would say that every other room in this house was unpacked and at least mostly organized within 3 days. And then my office took a little bit longer because
mm.
there was just a piles of stuff in the corner, but that was okay because I didn't need to get right to work to weigh. Again, it wasn't my priority, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um,
It does. But when you're okay, so, backing up really, like, quickly, I hear you talking, and I'm envisioning myself spending days on end pre-packing and doing somebody else's job for them, which is, like, preemptively driving me insane. But then I also am like, okay, on the other end, I will have this all unpacked and put away, which will drive me less insane later. And so I guess it's a question of which insane are you okay with?
Yeah, I mean, and some people are okay with them just coming in and putting all their stuff in boxes and coming back and then unpacking it all and
Yeah.
doing all the organization then. But that's how like we ended up one time with our grill brush in with our Christmas decorations, and we couldn't find the grill brush for 6 months.
Mm,
And then we found it in with the tree skirt when we got the Christmas decorations out,
mhm,
and we were like,
mhm.
oh, great, yeah, that's the best place for that. Um, so again, just this idea of like when you know where everything is and it's all in the right place and you've given it a good home and you've kind of just set it apart from everything else, like it makes it really easy for the movers, first of all, to come in and pack it for you, but then also for them to come and just set it out for you and you can easily put it away when you're ready instead of having to look at piles of stuff. So again, yeah, you're right in terms of like it takes a little bit of time, it takes a little bit of work, and yes, you're kind of doing someone else's job for them. But when you think about how much you will just feel so much better when you can get unpacked really fast on the other end. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you.
Yeah,
Like, especially with being in a new place, your kids are going to a new school, your spouse is dealing with a new job. Like, I don't want to add to that with them, everybody having to come home into a giant pile of mess. And that's why I think I don't know if this is the key to success because there are people who can get unpacked in under a week without having the movers do it for them. Those are crazy people that I don't know how they do that, but um, this has just been the best way
yeah,
for me, and I know other people who do it like this, and it has worked out really well for them as well. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, you're the expert, so we'll take your word for it. Okay, so we've talked about before the PCS, or we've talked about after the PCS rather. If someone listening to this is getting ready, so it's before the PCS, what are 2 or 3 things they can do right this second, literally right now to get organized. And I don't mean like pre-packing necessarily, although that could be one thing, but like PCS on the brain, how do I start today?
Well, definitely want to start, depending on, when that's going to happen for you. Start with those seasonal switches, especially if you're more than a few months out. And I think we'll have a printable for this for your listeners if they link it to that blog post. And that way, you can just kind of start with whatever season you're in and go from there. You don't have to necessarily go back to summer if you're in the fall when you're listening to this. um, and then I would also say, because something that other people kind of get caught up on, especially when they're moving out, is they want to sell everything that they think they can get a little bit of value for. And I'm not one to say that it's not worth something or that you couldn't get a good amount of money, but when you're in it, like you're just trying to get rid of stuff and out the door or get it ready to be packed, I would either just donate it now or wait to sell it when you get to your new destination, if you must. If you have to put it on the truck so that you make sure you get money out of it later, just put it on the truck and don't worry about trying to sell it beforehand. Um,
You're seeing my soul. I'm such a like, I'm not giving this away. I could make money off of
I
this, and then it sits in my closet for a bajillion years. I'm
I
that
and
person.
that's
Yep.
okay,
Mhm.
but, like, I don't want you to rush through selling it at the end and either, 1, not get as much money as you wanted for it, if that's really your goal, or 2, have to worry about, meeting up with somebody or having buyers fall through on you when you're trying to, like, schedule around all this other stuff. That's just too much stress. So it's either donate it now or just stick it out on the curb for free if you have to, um, or wait to sell it later. Um and then there's this thing in decluttering and organizational programs called aspirational clutter. And this is something that I think we as um, military families uh, either hold on to. Again, we talked about like thinking you can keep it because in case you need it, but this is also like maybe hobby stuff that you thought you would get into, like all your scrapbooking stuff or I don't
Mm.
know, maybe you got really big on archery for a couple of months or something like that, and then you bought a guitar because you thought you were going to take lessons. Anything like that, or maybe you want to bake a lot, so you have a lot of baking stuff, but you just never do. Um, all of that is aspirational clutter. You have good ideas and good intentions for it, but maybe you haven't touched it since the last duty station. So this would be a good
Mm.
time to just be like, you know what? I haven't touched it in 2, 3 years. I can probably let it go. And if I ever really, really, really want to get back into it, I can do it later. Um, and then
Yeah.
also get those 10 or 15 or 20 sealed boxes that are in the garage or your storage room and empty them. Don't let another move go by where another
Hmm.
inventory sticker is slapped on top and sent off to the next place without seeing what's inside.
Ah, you've seen my soul. My guilty, cluttered.
Because we all do it. You're not alone. We all do it.
I know. I'm really not that bad, guys. I promise. People are going to listen to these podcast episodes and be like, oh my gosh, Amy's house must be a disaster because they'll have heard my confession, all of my, like, we maybe just should title this Amy's PCS Confessions because they'll have heard this episode where I'm like, I don't know how to organize. And then my talk with Megan about the binder. And we have an episode with Maria Reed talking about home design, in which I confess that I am very bad at that and so on and so forth. So, but man, such good actionable tips, stuff that you can do, even if you're not PCSing, even if like me, you're here to stay for a hot second, and your PCSs are but a fond memory. Uh, you can still go out into your home right now and take some of these actionable steps and really enjoy the little bit of freedom and peace you get by knowing what you own, and that everything has a place. So that's just so
Absolutely.
great.
I love it.
Krista, thank you so much for being on PCS with Military.com today. I so appreciate your time, tips, and tricks.
Thank you. This has been such a great joy.
Thanks so much for listening to PCS with Military.com. Want more PCS advice? Check out the rest of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts. A special thanks to our sponsor, Navy Federal Credit Union, proudly serving all branches of the armed forces, veterans, and their families. No matter where you are in your military career, Navy Federal Credit Union has the products and resources to help you navigate your finances. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. Our members are the mission.